everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks, the podcast slash YouTube channel where I talk to film and TV industry creatives about their work, the craft, and experience in the industry. And today I am joined by two lovely ladies, Jade Wu and Shuya Chang, to discuss their new film Snakehead, directed by Evan Jackson Leong, which I screened for the 2021 Toronto International Film Festival. And so before we get into that, I'm just going to ask Jade and Shuya to say a little bit about themselves and their characters before we get into the film. So Jade?
Uh, a little bit about myself. Let's see, I've been an actor and in this business for about 50 years. The character I play is Dai Mah, who is the matriarch of the Chinatown community and also her family.
Hi, I'm Shuya. I'm a little bit about myself. I guess I was born in Taiwan, but I grew up in Austria. I'm in New York now. I'm an actress here. My character is Sister Tse. She's a woman that gets smuggled into the United States in the hopes to find her daughter, but slowly rises up to become a very successful and powerful human smuggler.
Yes. I saw this film and I love this film for one very specific thing in the fact that it's about two extremely strong but very vulnerable women. And I love that we get to see these two aspects of these women because normally when we get a film with strong female characters, we really don't get to see the vulnerable side of them. And I think this film brings that out in both Dai Mah and Sister Tse. So I want to talk about that part first because I think a lot of the story hinges on these two characteristics of these two women. So for you, Suya, can you talk a bit about how you approach playing Sister Tse? Because she's physically, like, I call her badass because she is. She's physically strong and she's very determined. But like we get to see these very vulnerable moments about her when she's thinking about her daughter and when she's remembering what her motivations are. So can you talk first about your approach to playing these two parts of her?
Well, my approach is, this woman has nothing to lose, right? Her objective is just really to go to the United States with nothing and try to get her daughter back. And she had to be smart about it and think about how to get there. So first being smuggled to survive there, to survive in the United States, then have to work herself way up to get noticed by Dai Mah, and then play her little chess game to get there, to get powerful enough to maybe be able to get back her daughter, right? So there's a lot of emotions in there in this character. And I'm not a mother yet, but
Yes.
as a mother, it's about family, and families are very important. And a mother would do anything to get to their child, to do what it takes to get her, right? So there's just a lot of layers in there that I have to ask questions and live it and just work on those parts. But at the same token, she has this toughness, right, to survive, and that's about survival, to survive as a person, as a human being in a complete foreign country, and to put her life on the line. So there's just a lot in her head to start with. So it was just a beautiful, meaty character for me to just dive in and just to study. So yeah, I had so much fun, and I can't wait to have another role like that.
And for you, Jay, the thing is with Dai Mah is a mother as well. And unlike Sister Tse, like her kids are grown. They're three grown men and they're all very different. And one of them is featured prominently in the film, which is Rambo, played by Kang. And what I thought was interesting for Dai Mah is she doesn't understand a lot of Sister Tse's motivation. She's looking at it from of the perspective of a woman who's running her own empire, of a smuggler. She's thinking very pragmatically. She thinks that Sister Tse's motivations has to do with money and getting power. So I thought it was interesting that she as a mother doesn't realize that about Sister Tse. So can you talk about playing this character and then her interactions with Sister Tse?
Well, Dai Mah is as with all of the characters in this film, they're all extremely complex. And With Dai Mah, she's a leader of a community. She is the leader of her family. She's the matriarch of both of those, different factions, and I am a mother. I'm not certainly nothing like Dai Mah, but maybe if you ask my daughter, she would probably say, "Oh, you're exactly like her." But no, to create these characters took a lot of work. It was extremely challenging because what you're showing is that it could easily spin into caricature or stereotype. And yes, they do appear as strong, badass, women, which are rare roles that are offered, to Asian American actors, um, to females. Period. I mean, it's just not Asian. But to create this character was extremely challenging because of not wanting to spin into character. So I think both Suya and I had to mold these characters in a way so that the subtext of those characters came across in idiosyncrasy, in physical gesture. In my younger self in real life, I was equally as active as Suya is in the film, but at this age, I can't be jumping around and beating up people as she did so magnificently in the film. We don't see that. We don't see the human side of the decisions that these women have to make and the consequences they make in order to survive in this world, not necessarily in community, but in the world. It doesn't matter whether you're an illegal immigrant or if you're smuggled or if it's in a family vortex. These things happen, these human dynamics happen within family, within community, within dark side operations like human smuggling.
Mm. And you mentioned the violence, which is something I was actually I was gonna ask next because we like I mentioned, like both like Sister Tse is badass. Like she does get violent, but the thing with Dai Mah is she's very violent, but in a very different way. And she uses psychology on people. Like she, like you said, like physically she can't be like going around like kicking ass, but what she can do is intimidate people. And like you convey that so well in like your body language and just in looks, because like you can just look at someone, you'll be like and like the person cowers. And she's in a world dominated by men. She's surrounded by men. And she's old and she's getting older and she knows her power is limited. Like her power will eventually, she will eventually lose it. And so she has to do what she can to hold on to it while she has it. And I want to talk a bit about just like conveying that violence, because like when we talk about films, like a lot of people think physical violence. They're always thinking about physical domination, but like she just does it with a look. She does it with a word. She does it with her presence. So can you just talk a bit about doing that? And for you, Sui, I want you to talk next about actually working opposite someone who's doing that kind of intimidation, whereas for your violence, yours is physical violence.
Yeah, I think, with violence is not necessarily physical. Violence can be extremely psychological. And in Dai Mah's case, she learned from the decisions she had to make and the consequences of those decisions. How does she lead a community? How does she lead an operation like this? How does she assume the responsibility of what she's doing? And she has to do it very carefully, and she has to navigate this whole system, which is male dominated, very carefully, because she could have been crushed at any given time, probably physically, probably murdered, but she wasn't, because she out manipulated and out thought her male, competitors. How often do you see a woman running an operation like this? Rarely. In any community, doesn't matter what ethnicity. Very rarely do you see a woman actually leading such a dark, operation like this. Silence was a huge motivation for me as part of text, because silence is more powerful than action for this character, because she's older, she's wiser, she knows that silence is a powerful tool, and it's a powerful tool to not intimidate, but to control. I mean, but she controls through intimidation. And that was key to me. So I had to find out, how does she walk? How does she talk? How does she pick up chopsticks? How does she drink tea? How does she, have all of those idiosyncrasies? Because in those little gestures, they're not physically violent, but you're scared as hell about her. So that for me was the challenge. And for Suya on the other part, I could never have done what she did.
Sister Tse is also manipulative. So let's not forget that part, right? She is younger and she is physically active, and she had to basically show that she's strong. And that's not just physically, but also mentally. She has to watch every move she does, watch every person around her, and I think you see it very well in the movie how they ping pong at each other in a way, watching the Dai Mah. She also really actually admires Dai Mah
Mhm.
at the same time, even though her objectives is to get her daughter, but she also has a liking in this because she saw the bigger picture. It's not just about smuggling people into the United States. It's also about keeping a dream alive, helping others, you know. So she draw those things from positive, not necessarily from the negative, what this woman actually does for other families.
I think, like Sister Tse is learning strength and how to be stronger from Dai Mah. And Dai Mah is learning from Sister Tse how, how she manipulates situations that, normally a woman would not be engaged in these situations. And so they're each learning from each other, even though, it appears that Dai Mah has a stronghold over her. She doesn't, because in the end, you'll see what happens, in the film. But, there is a competition. There is this constant chess game, and who is on, ultimately going to say checkmate.
Mm.
And you'll find out when you see the film.
Right.
No, I agree completely because like one thing like I don't think many people, especially I should say men, don't understand about women is how we can be in very contentious situations but still admire each other. We can admire how smart another woman is, well, even though she's our rival. And we get that in this film. And I think that's something I told Evan this, and like I also appreciate when you have male writers and directors who understand women and who understand how women interact with each other. Because people say, oh, like she's being catty, she's being women, but women are like, nah, this woman is extremely smart, she's extremely slick, and I might want to take her down, and I might want to get her to get the promotion and get her position, but I can respect how smart she is, and I can respect how she moves. And we get that with Dai Mah, Sister Tse, like Dai Mah, like when she starts working with Sister Tse, when she begins to trust her, is when she sees how smart and observant Sister Tse is, like, in that game, the game hall, where she catches the man cheating and she doesn't expose him. She just like very slyly says, like, yeah, I catch you.
Yeah.
I see you. And Dai Mah's like, this is someone I can trust. This is someone I can work with, because she doesn't let her emotions rule her. Because, like, for instance, if a man was to do, a man would have probably created a cue scene and it could have turned into a shootout. But Sister Tse was like, no, we're just gonna keep this calm.
That's exactly the difference, and you hit the nail, because there's a difference between the way males manifest their power and their rulership versus the female, because with the male, it's all physical, it's all posturing like a peacock. With women, it's posturing psychologically.
Right.
So that's the difference, and that's what we don't see enough of, in films. That's what makes Snakehead so special, because they're two strong women who are posturing psychologically, constantly throughout the film, and it keeps the intensity going.
Mm. And so yeah, there I want you to talk a bit. There's another character, where she, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name. Where it's kind of like the opposite of her reactions, her interactions with Dai Mah, and this is Rambo's girlfriend. And like they have a struggle, but it's not very obvious until like some very particular scenes in the third act. And I want to get your opinion as a female actress, and both of you, about working in the industry, because I kind of see how that could kind of happen in the film industry, where like there's very limited roles for Asian American women, and very very few of them are, I guess you could say, are not stereotyped. And like, like kind of like these characters, like these women aren't stereotyped. Like we don't see these kind of women in North American productions often. If you watch a lot of Asian content, you will see them, but for those produced in North America, is like far and few in between. Hopefully with films like this we get more of them going forward. But I want you to talk a bit about how these playing these kind of characters kind of influences you as an actress, and how you approach roles, and like basically and navigate through the industry.
Well, I mean, first, I think it goes down to writers. We need more writers that understands um, those type of stories, that want to write those type of story, to normalize those stories about women in general. So I think it comes down to that people accept that, and that those movies are also being watched and liked and can make money. We need to get more support of that. um, we have a little crack open for it, I think. There still needs to be a lot still needs to be done for that. So there's the struggle as an Asian actress in general. We just really swim in a very small pool,
Mhm.
you know, and it's sad, but I'm also very hopeful, and it's exciting times now that there's just more Asian representations now in general, and I hope it will keep going. You just can wait and see, and I just hope there will be more content like that, and I hope this movie will also help to get
Yeah,
that.
and this, to come, piggyback on that, I hope a film like Snakehead will begin to strengthen a new genre of filmmaking, which is the female genre. It's not the male genre. It's not a martial arts genre, but it's the female genre because, and in this case, it's an Asian American genre. We have stories, and we're all human. We're not invisible. These things take place in any ethnic community and any ethnicity and any cultural environment. We're all human, and that is what this film is all about. It's about humanism. It's about survival. It's about protection. We all know all of those aspects of life. So if more stories can be opened up, if more appetites can be whetted by, a story like this, what Evan's created, great. We have Crazy Rich Asians, we have Shang-Chi, but this is not like a superhero movie. It's not a romance comedy movie. This is a movie about human beings, and we just happen to be Asian American.
No, for sure. Because like I'm not Asian, but one thing I do, I relate a lot to the story in films like this because I'm an immigrant, and this is something that I've been talking more about recently because I want people to realize that these stories do apply to especially people from other countries who moved to North America, because a lot of things that we experience, no matter what culture you're from, what country you're from, they are very similar. There's a lot of aspects of the immigrant experience that is universal to many of us. And I saw a lot of things that I related to in this film, and in Dai Mah's and Sister Tse's experiences, because like they have to contend with a society who doesn't necessarily understand them or even want to understand them, but then they still have to deal with struggles within their own enclaves, within their own communities, especially as women. Like if you come from societies that are very patriarchal, or where women's points of view aren't necessarily as valued or maybe dismissed, but you still have your, like, I have to deal with being an immigrant, but I still also have to deal with being a woman, and then a woman of color, and I still have to hold on to my power the way I can. And these two women have all of these situations that they're dealing with, and it's like they can't catch a break. And I don't see either of them as a villain. Like some people might say like Dai Mah's villain because of what she does, but like to me, the story isn't about that. It's not a story about like good or evil. It's about these two women who are in a situation and they're making the best of it. Like I called Dai Mah, she's like the old immigrant. She's been there, but she's been in America what 40 years plus, and she's still having to learn to navigate this system of where she's living. And like then there's Sister Tse, who's a new immigrant. She's like looking for her daughter, but then she's learning the politics of being an immigrant in this situation. So I want you both, can you both talk about that a bit from your own, not only your own personal experiences, but from the experiences of the characters and how they were written?
Well, for me, I mean, I can relate to that character because I myself am an immigrant, right? My parents moved from Taiwan to Austria, and then I moved myself to the United States, you know. So there's just struggles that you have when you grow up, you know. Me in Austria, it's a full white city, right? I went to school and there was only maybe two other Asian people in school, and I was the only one in my class. So everything was very, very different. I had to learn the new language, to eat, something that's completely new to me, dress differently. So I had to go through all of that as well. For Sister C, it's different, but same thing. You moving from a culture to a completely different culture to have to survive there. You know, the struggles, as you described it very well, you know, you have to learn about the politics, being a woman, then be strong and rise to the top and try to manipulate the situation. It's just human struggle in general. And I think this is what this movie really shows, the human struggle and how to survive. And everyone has their own story, right? And I think that's where people can also relate when you are an immigrant, what you have to go through and the struggles, you know, to even get a visa, legal or illegally, you know. So we can talk so much about it for hours, you know.
It is
Yeah,
not.
I think, and I'm also an immigrant, first generation, and I didn't speak English until I was maybe 5. Um, and but I was a legal, immigrant. I was a documented immigrant. I didn't know the underbellies of being, human trafficked, or the illegal, immigration process or protocols, and the dangers involved. So, the immigration experience, I think, is pretty much the same, no matter how you immigrate to the country. There's an assimilation that is so challenging, and that is part of the survival, to assimilate into a world that is so foreign to you. The smells, the looks, the way you dress, the way that there's prejudice against you just by virtue of what you look like. You become a minority in this, majority mainstream. Um, and it's a mainstream that doesn't know your culture, doesn't know who you are, nor do they want to know. And so that's also another survival, challenge, is they don't really want to know you because you're considered foreign. So how do you make, stories like this make an impact, is that we exist, and we've existed here. I mean, Evan is 6th generation here. I mean, his family, was born and raised here. His parents were, his grandparents were. This is the only country they know. But then there are all the other immigrants, but we're all challenged by the same thing. We're still trying to assimilate in a world that's all we know, but we're still, challenged with assimilation because people don't know who we are. And hopefully Snakehead will introduce not just the villains, and the dark side and the underbelly, but the humanism of this particular race in this particular story, with a universal element to it in terms of story and experience. I hope it introduces the mainstream audience to us, all of us, you, Carolyn, to everybody, because
Yes.
we're all immigrants. And the thing is, we really are all immigrants in the United States, whether you're Caucasian or any ethnicity. We're all immigrants. We just don't dominate the mainstream. And so hopefully Snakehead will, whet appetites to have more stories like this. And that's why I think this film is so special. Nobody tells these kinds of stories. We need more of them.
Right.
Thank you so much for speaking with me. I know you guys have to probably go to do another junket or press event. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I wish we had more time because there's so much more we could talk about. But I really appreciate you talking to me. And is there anything you would like to say before we close out?
come see the film. Come see the film and see it, more of us on our future projects. I mean, we've got a lot of things coming down the pike, and so, support us.
Mhm.
Every film that you see or hear about, watch it.
Yeah, watch it, support us. See you in the movie theater, hopefully.
Yeah. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for talking to us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Carolyn Talks, and to my guests, Shuya Chang and Jade Wu, for speaking with me about their new film, Snakehead, directed by Evan Jackson Leong. You can find my interview with Evan on the butwhythepodcast.com site, as well as on other streaming platforms. You can also see that in video format on my YouTube channel under my name, Carolyn Hines. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. That's CarrieCNH12. You can also find more of my podcasts on the butwhythepodcast.com site. Those are Beyond the Romance, my Asian drama podcast, as well as So Here's What Happened, which I co-host with my friend Lanisha Campbell, where we discuss all of our entertainment picks for the month. You can find Beyond the Romance also in video format on my YouTube channel. Follow my hashtag Dramas with Carrie to see the current dramas that I'm live tweeting, as well as Saturday Night Sci-Fi, which is the live tweet event that I co-host with my friend, and where we every Saturday night at 10 p.m. live tweet a selected film or show from in the sci-fi genre from around the world and on different streaming platforms. So until the next episode, everyone, stay safe.